What comes to your mind when we talk about Switzerland? Certainly not this. This is the area of Zermatt in the southern part of the country. Violent storms hit the region in recent days. Coupled with the melting snow, it caused flooding and landslides in the picturesque village at the foothills of Matterhorn, where the river Visp has recently burst its banks. Several rivers burst their banks in the valley, covering roads, fields, and villages with rubble and wood. 3 houses were buried. This is the Swiss ski resort of Zermatt in the Matterhorn mountain that has been cut off from the rest of the world due to recent flooding, bringing rail and road services to a standstill. 3 people were reported missing. Later on, emergency services found a person's dead body. Some 200 people, drones, helicopters and rescue dogs were drafted into the rescue and cleanup effort in the Misox Valley. Authorities say this kind of rainfall only happens once every 30 years. Last year, the United Nations World Meteorological Organization reported that Swiss glaciers have lost about 10% of the remaining volume between 2021 and 2023. With snow cover now present only at the highest elevations in Switzerland. The effects of the heat wave are visible now. The Alpine country has over 1,422 square kilometers of lake areas and 65,300 kilometers of water courses, including rivers and streams. These water bodies are directly impacted by climate change. Remember, the 2005 flood is one of the most severe events that impacted the country. Those floods led to the death of 6 people and caused extensive financial losses amounting to $3.3 billion. 20 years later, Switzerland is facing another severe case of flooding. Climate change is intensifying the heat pattern. Europe is the fastest warming continent, and its temperatures are rising at roughly twice the global average. The latest 5-year averages show that temperatures in Europe are now running 2.3 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, compared to 1.3 degrees Celsius higher globally. Several places in Europe are now facing severe heat wave conditions.
I'm 88 years old, so I'm in the category of the most vulnerable people at the moment. But I try to be careful to go to the sea, so I do my best, you know.
Our advice, regardless of spring, summer and autumn, is always to drink at least 2 liters of water a day, and also to take mineral salts and rehydrating solutions for our body, because our body needs electrolyte solutions which help with water losses due to heat and sweat.
It's really sad that somebody's lost their life. It's really intensely hot, and you need to look after your health and make sure that you take plenty of water and shelter and be very sensible in the heat.
The heat also is very, very hot with the sun like today, and I've learned that one man died because of this heat now. It's sad. It's sad. Nobody is normally have to die in vacation, and that's a little bit sad. Yeah.
We have heard of a couple of sadly tragedies where one being a doctor from England, another guy from America who unfortunately went off the track without the proper, shall we say, he should have had his water, should have had the right clothing.
The Hajj pilgrimage, a cornerstone of Islam, draws millions of Muslims to Mecca each year. It is considered one of the largest religious mass gatherings in the world. The government estimated that this year's visitors' capacity at 1.8 million. However, the sacred journey turned tragic as over 1,300 pilgrims lost their lives due to extreme heat.
Yesterday we were on our way and we saw corpses on the road, and they were covered with a white sheet because the temperatures here are really high. And I'm not just talking about old people. Young people have died too. But praise God if He wanted people to die here. Praise God.
Yesterday, most of the people, they died on the roadside, and some were fainted due to the heat and heat stroke. So they should make such arrangements that during the summer season, when the Hajj season is in the summer, they should arrange a bit transportation for the whole. Lady was lying there, she was not having any relative, and the people were passing by, and no one was just we asked the security to provide them an ambulance or something like that, but there was no such facility there.
Temperatures in Mecca climbed as high as 51.8 degrees Celsius. It is reported more than 650 Egyptians, 200 Indonesians and almost 100 Indians died due to extreme heat conditions. The Saudi officials say 83% of 1,300 plus fatalities were unauthorized pilgrims. These pilgrims walked long distances in soaring temperatures to perform the Hajj rituals.
The number of deaths have reached 1,300. May God have mercy on them all and forgive them. 83% of them were unauthorized and were under the sun without any shelter.
Climate scientists say such deaths offer a glimpse of what is to come for the tens of millions of pilgrims expected in the coming decades to undertake the Hajj.
We need to prepare, we need to adapt, we need to introduce the adaptation option as much as we can, while realizing that it will compromise on the centuries-old ritual, but still we need to save people. But at the same time, we must do climate action to stop the global warming at 1.5 degrees centigrade. At anything beyond that, we are putting those pilgrims at the risk of death.
Yeah, it's hard. It's dangerous. I mean, people, if they don't stay hydrated, they don't stay in the shade, they can go into a heat stroke, and die potentially. So the heat waves are really dangerous, especially for homeless people because they don't have that comfy home with AC to stay in.
So the way I see it, as soon as we start feeling uncomfortable, that's probably when it's time to start misting them down. These guys will have a little higher heat tolerance than your average person, but even so, they're not immune to the effects of heat. So just as often as possible.
And what we have is a blood sickle, which is just a little bit of blood kind of frozen for our cheetahs. That is one thing we do to help keep them cool in the summertime.
But we did see some cresting on the Big Sioux River overnight. In case we needed any reminder of the destructive nature of water, we are seeing it in real time downstream. We do see a lot of debris flowing in the water.
Two different pictures. Two different scenarios. Intense heat and floods. These two extreme weather conditions have rattled the United States in the last few days. On the 23rd of June, more than 100 million people across the US were put under heat warnings. Cities on the East Coast faced record-breaking temperatures. In Philadelphia, a reading of 98 degrees Fahrenheit or 36 degrees Celsius beat the record set 136 years ago, in 1888. Residents in Washington, D.C.'s Georgetown neighborhood and Boston, Massachusetts kept themselves cool using water fountains. In the states of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, temperatures recorded were as much as 15 degrees above normal. On the other hand, hundreds were evacuated from flooding in the Midwest. From the mid-Atlantic to Maine, across the Great Lakes region and throughout the west of California, public officials cautioned residents about the dangers of excessive heat and humidity. In the Midwest, where South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota meet, floodwaters rose. In northwest Iowa, 13 rivers flooded the area. Flooding in South Dakota has led to significant destruction, including the collapse of a key bridge and widespread damage to homes and infrastructure. The collapse of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad Bridge, a crucial link for transporting commodities, will have significant economic repercussions in the coming days. Let's take you now to the US-Mexico border. Rescue teams on both sides of the US border were deployed along the desert area surrounding the wall to aid migrants attempting to cross the line under scorching temperatures.
A person who attempted to cross the United States was abandoned by the people who brought him here. Today we retrieved the body. This operation started 2 days ago with the disappearance. His family warned us and we started the search of the person.
In India too, there are sites of heat waves and floods at the same time. The country witnessed a prolonged and persistent heat wave. Northern and northwestern parts of India has been impacted from the scorching heat. Government data shows that there were nearly 40,000 cases of suspected heat stroke, and 110 people lost their lives in the sweltering heat across the country from March until the 18th of June. Look at these visuals. Several bats in India's northern Kanpur city collapsed due to heat strokes and dehydration. Rising temperatures have pushed power demand to a record high. Many incidents of air conditioners catching fire were reported throughout the summer. Residents of the capital, New Delhi, even struggled with water shortages. The water crisis remains a grim issue throughout the country, from the north to the western regions, such as Nashik district. People have been grappling with severe water shortage.
There is no water in our village and women have to climb inside the well to draw water. We have to put our lives in danger to get water because there is no rain.
Whereas in eastern India, floods have battered several regions. In the Himalayan state of Sikkim, dozens of tourists and locals were trapped in Lachung due to heavy rain, triggered landslides on the 13th of June. Incessant rains have created havoc, killing 9 people and leaving 1,200 plus tourists stranded. In annual floods of Assam, at least 37 were killed this time. Waters have inundated more than 900 villages across 10 districts, displacing 170,000 people. Southern China has been battered by heavy rains over the last couple of days. Deadly flooding and landslides have killed at least 71 people. Over 179,000 people have been affected by flooding around Huangshan City. Several regions in China's Hunan province have been deluged by heavy rain. The incessant rains have prompted the National Weather Service to issue its most severe rainstorm alert and warnings of further flash floods and mudslides in the coming days. The level of the rains in June has caught many by surprise. China usually enters its peak rainy season in late July. In northern and eastern parts, the scenes are completely different. Weeks of scarce rainfall and sweltering heat have brought drought to several provinces, including Shandong, a major agricultural province with over 3.2 million hectares of corn planted this season.
It's extremely severe. From the time I can remember, ever since I was a child, I've never seen it this bad. Even with the drought in the 1960s, it wasn't as dry as it is this year. Back then, it still rained once or twice in the spring, but this year it hasn't rained even once.
对，希望政府给老农民减轻一些负担，说如果能给放水最好。对，希望老农民心里的心声就这样，我们不好说，好难呀！你看到了，老农民好难。
The wheat-growing belt in the provinces of Hebei, Henan and Shandong are also severely affected. From abnormal temperatures to erratic rains, the world is witnessing the new climate normal. Apart from its impact on human health, the economic cost of climate change is also worsening. With extreme weather events getting more common, more expensive to tackle, and harder to predict accurately, several economies are getting severely impacted. Extreme weather ravages agricultural yields, harms labor productivity, and destroys infrastructure. According to researchers at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, climate change will inflict losses to the global economy worth an annual $38 trillion by 2049. It's just the halfway mark in 2024, and several countries have already seen the devastating effects of climate change. If this is not a wake-up call, then what is?